The Chicago Bears set 4 top 30 visits to all players that can drastically help the Chicago Bears next year. We're talking about all 4 of those visits, who those 4 players are, and we're going to talk about Ryan Poles and kind of his direction to staff when it comes to the number 9 overall pick. We're going to do all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. You can follow the podcast at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. And so the Bears have scheduled 4 top 30 visits, which all players that Bears fans should be excited about, and that kind of point towards where the direction that the Chicago Bears are going in. Well, a couple of different directions, I would say, looking at this. So first up, the Chicago Bears do have top 30 visits scheduled with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers. Now, we all know that one of the wide receivers are going to fall down to number 9. Well, it's expected that one of them or Joe Alt will fall down to number 9 for the Chicago Bears to potentially draft there. But with recent rumors that the Bears could potentially be looking to move up in the draft as well, it's raised a new level of possibilities, especially when you look at the Bears hosting Marvin Harrison Jr., who, while he is expected to be, well, him and Malik Nabers are both expected to, one of them to be the first wide receiver taken off the board as well. This comes from the NFL Network's Ian Cunningham in regards to that. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers will both make their top 30 visits on Thursday, so that's in 2 days with the Chicago Bears. Now, top 30 visits in no way mean for sure that a team's going to draft him. It gets the medicals is kind of the last step in the evaluation process, and the Bears, who are expected to kind of be reviewing all options. We know that we had the 33rd team come out with a mock draft that, said that the Bears could potentially move up to try to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. with the number 5 overall pick. Not saying that. I'm not getting into all that. We kind of talked about that on Sunday's live stream if you guys want to go and check that out. But it does probably mean that the Bears aren't ruling out potentially moving up to get one of those guys. Doesn't mean that it's a for sure thing, but kind of maybe wanting to take a look and evaluate all the 3 of the top wide receivers in this draft to see about which one is potentially the best to pair with Caleb Williams, and to see what to go with in that direction. So this all makes sense. Listen, we all know who Marvin Harrison Jr. is at this point in time. He is, in many people's estimation, and mine, myself, is one of the generational. Him and Joe Alt are the generational talents in this draft to me. When you look at how Marvin Harrison Jr. was that offense for the Ohio State Buckeyes last season, who had a terrible quarterback in McCord, who is in the transfer portal now. I think he's already picked his new team. But Marvin Harrison Jr. he's a stud. And when you look at him, and that's not even because of him being the son of Marvin Harrison, not anything because of that. Just in his own right, he's a stud. 6'3", 209 pounds. This is a guy who over his collegiate career had 31 touchdowns. 31 touchdowns, 155 receptions, 2,613 yards. Keep in mind, that first year in college in 2021, he played 13 games and only had 11 receptions for 139 yards. So most of that damage being done in just 2 years in collegiate football. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud, and he is one of the best players that you can possibly get in this draft overall. And then you look at Malik Nabers, a guy who's the stats jump out the stat sheet at you, absolutely. 38 games played in his collegiate career, 189 receptions for 3,003 yards, 21 touchdowns in that time. He also has, a couple of rushing yards in that as well. Malik Nabers is also a stud. So if the Bears are really trying to evaluate if it's worth moving up in that draft to potentially draft one of those guys or go a different route, that's what it seems like the Bears are doing with this recent visit. Oh, well, not recent, but this upcoming visit. And it just makes sense for the Bears to and we know Ryan Poles likes to go over all possible scenarios. And so he's going to want to do those top 30 visits with those 2 players. And I, for one, am happy that he's looking at those 2 guys. But then we also have 2 top 30 visits that are actually going down today for the Chicago Bears. And that's Xavier Worthy, who broke the record for the fastest 40-yard dash in the NFL Draft Combine history. And then Laiatu Latu, who's a guy that we've talked a lot about here. Now, those are guys that I haven't talked a lot about Xavier Worthy because just kind of when you look at it, he's projected to go much later in the in the first round, potentially even at the beginning of the second round. But I think kind of he's moved up to that first round area now. But this is a guy who, especially last year, 14 games played, 75 receptions for 1,014 yards, 5 touchdowns as well. But that speed, that quickness, right? A 4.2 40 did he run, breaking that wide receiver record in the NFL Draft Combine. Now, Xavier Worthy doesn't have the number one overall wide receiver potential that like a Rome Odunze, Malik Nabers, and Marvin Harrison Jr. have, but Xavier Worthy, especially when you look at what the Bears have right now, potentially coming in being that slot receiver right away for the Chicago Bears, he could do that right away. And that may point to the Bears maybe not being as content with Tyler Scott as some people think. He's 5'11", 165 pounds. He'll be 21 years old all of his rookie season as well. So a lot of mocks have him, like I said, going between the end of the first round to beginning of the second round. So it really comes down to that with Xavier Worthy on how you really view him, at that level. And it's interesting the Bears are hosting him for a top 30 visit. I won't lie. He's probably going to go right outside that first round is what I think. The Bears don't have a second round pick. He's not going to be there after their first round pick. So this could point more towards maybe it is a trade back scenario for the Chicago Bears. So, that's something to look at for sure there with Keenan Allen, with DJ Moore being the clear-cut primary receivers. With Worthy in that speed, he can slide in right away and be a slot, and somebody that Shane Waldron is probably going to use a whole hell of a lot. So, we'll see. I don't expect like that. It's weird for a top 30, weird in a way for him to be on the Bears top 30 visit list just because of where he's slated to go. And the Bears don't have a second round pick. If they had a second round pick, it'll kind of make more sense. So that could point towards some cooking being done by Ryan Poles to kind of find a way to bring him in if that's the way that they're looking at going with it. So that's interesting with that top 30 visit, him being on that list. But then Laiatu Latu from UCLA, he's a guy that I've talked a lot about when I've covered edges in this upcoming draft. 6'5", 259 pounds. I already said out of UCLA. When you look at him, over the course of the 3 years he played in college football, 33 games played, 61 solo tackles, 39 assisted. That's 100 total tackles in that. He's had, he's had 24 sacks in that time as well. 13 of those come in last year, 10 of that the year before. Prior to that, 35 tackles for a loss as well. 2 interceptions from him, all coming last season as well, and 4 passes deflected over his collegiate career as well. 5 fumbles forced. So this is a guy who brings some size. It looks, again, kind of a trade back candidate there. So you have 2 coming in on Wednesday, and Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison Jr. that would kind of point towards maybe trading up. And then you have Laiatu Latu and Xavier Worthy that kind of would be pointing towards maybe trading back and even picking up an additional pick for the Chicago Bears. So it's just interesting like how the spectrum that the Bears are really casting with these top 30 visits. And, again, I'm not against it. I think that you need to cast a wide net. You need to have all the data in front of you possible before you make a decision on something like that. And Xavier Worthy, for what it's worth as well, he's already had posts on his social media that kind of point towards him being excited about, the potential of playing with Caleb Williams. So that's something that's all pointing towards that with the Chicago Bears. And it's an interesting place that the Bears put themselves in. But clearly, wide receiver is on the menu for the Chicago Bears in one way or another. They're really looking at that. And then edge, which is things that we already know that the Bears need as well with that said. So the Bears they're doing their due diligence, and that's all you can ask for. All you can ask for the Chicago Bears to do in that. Now, there's been conflicting reports between what you look at and what the Bears could look to do. Phil Yates from ESPN pointed towards the Bears being the best candidate to kind of trade down inside that top 10. So, take that for what it's worth. There's going to be a lot of kind of media outlets that say different things on what the Bears could do or what they're hearing. But at the end of the day, I think the Bears are in a position that let me not say they can't do no wrong, because you could select somebody who may even seem like the right pick initially that could end up just not working out for the team. That's still a potential there. But the Bears are in a position where they're going to have a lot of avenues and routes they can go depending on where they view it at. And, Ryan Poles has talked about that as well, recently, and that kind of brings us to our next topic, basically just reiterating what we've heard before, right? Saying this year it doesn't. When asked about only having 4 draft picks, Ryan Poles asked if it bothers him. This year it doesn't. The way this is set up with some of the draft capital we've been able to create in the first 2 years, I feel pretty comfortable about it. It'll be boring if we don't do any trades, but I feel good about where we're at. And so that I talked about that last week as well. It seems like Ryan Poles is content. And I know a lot of Bears fans, we talk to you guys all the time. aren't, right? Or they're questioning going into a draft with only 4 picks with how many holes that the Chicago Bears have left that need to be filled on the roster. But as I've told you guys many times, and this goes back to even the first year of the show being a thing, is that, and that was leading into Ryan Poles' first draft, is that not every hole on your roster is going to be filled in a single offseason. And Poles has done a really good job of filling that. Keenan Allen upgrading that wide receiver room, right? The depth that he's gotten on that O-line as well, really kind of revamping that whole offense as well. We're bringing in Gerald Everett and Swift to kind of be those extra weapons for that team as well. And they may feel pretty confident about what they've done already with the picks in this draft. The one that became Montez Sweat, the other one that became Keenan Allen. So, while I understand a lot of Bears fans kind of being a little worried about only having 4 picks in this draft, we got 8 potentially in next year's draft. And a draft that's also going to be pretty damn deep is next year's draft slated to be pretty deep. So, if Ryan Poles is really confident about only having those 4 picks, it may mean that those 4 picks, the players that he has on his board to get with those picks, could do really well. And don't overlook the potential of the Bears doing smaller trades to get a couple more picks, either with maybe not trading any of their picks in the first round, but maybe moving some of their other picks, or even maybe since they do have so much draft capital next year, using maybe some future picks next year with those 2 seconds and things that the Bears do have to potentially then move into a different round in this draft. They just see a guy that they have to get. And Matt Eberflus as well. Matt Eberflus saying this: we're going to get a blue chip player for sure. What we've done in free agency allows us to be flexible, to really be able to take the best player, the one we feel fits us in that spot. And we've already talked about how Ryan Poles is basically have different war rooms, right? The offensive line room, the tackle room, right? The defensive end room, the wide receiver room, right? And then they're going to come in, all present their arguments, and they're going to make a decision as a unit based off what they do at that point. And that's not a bad place to be in. I know it's more fun, it's more exciting to talk about your team trading and having 6 to 8 picks in a draft and things like that. But the Bears right now, I don't think are in a bad spot at all with having that number 9 pick. And while they maintain the flexibility to be able to move off of it if they need to, they also can stay there if needed as well. And that's the thing that you want to keep, is that flexibility if you're the Chicago Bears with doing that. And that's the most important thing. And I like the fact that the Bears do have and share that flexibility with what they can do with this roster in that draft. And so we'll see, man. I get it. Like I said, I understand completely Bears fans feeling a little antsy right now on what the Bears are going to potentially do with that pick. But when it comes down to it, if Ryan Poles feels confident in it, if the coaching staff as well feel confident in it, then I'm going to trust it. And, not that Ryan Poles does necessarily have complete blind faith. I like a lot of what Ryan Poles has done with this team to kind of really reshape it. And there are still going to be misses. There's not a situation or scenario in which you're going to get where the Bears don't at all miss on anything. It's going to happen. And I think when it comes down to that, you just got to hope that the Bears are on the right side of history with whatever decision that they make there, and we'll see. Ryan Poles has my trust for right now. And the new phase that we're moving into with the Chicago Bears team is one that I know a lot of Bears fans are excited, and even if you do have some trepidation about kind of the decisions that Ryan Poles has made in the past, or even trepidation on the quarterback or not having more picks or whatever it is, at the end of the day, it comes down to what I've been saying for a little while now is my mindset. I don't expect everyone to share this mindset. We're all Bears fans. We have the right to have the thought process that we have on it. But as long as you get the decision right, and even if I disagree or have questions or it's not necessarily what I would have wanted to see the team do, even if that happens, just get it right. And that's what that story won't be told for years, or even more with some of these draft selections. We won't really know for a little while looking at it and saying, hey, this ended up being the right decision. Much like I thought the Bears were crazy for passing up on George Pickens. And while Pickens has really turned into still a really good player, right? And not to say that, but I like what we have in Jaquan Brisker. I like what we have in Kyler Gordon. I like what those guys have brought and how they've helped fit as a team on a full team concept. So, we'll end up seeing what happens with that. I think that now kind of it becomes more what we have to kind of know what the Bears are going to do at number 9. But then what the Bears do in the 3rd round is going to be really important too, because we focus so much on those 2 top 10 picks, and that makes sense because there are 2 picks in the top 10. There's still some really solid talent the Bears can get later on in this draft that can absolutely help this team considerably. And that's at some of the positions of need, depending on what's going to happen at it. When you look at it, like Braylon Trice Washington, right? That's a guy who really can help the Chicago Bears a lot. Aiden Isaac out of Penn State, another guy at that edge position that can help a whole hell of a lot. He had 14 and a half sacks, 31 tackles, and 92 tackles for a loss. He tested out really good also in that thing. So he's another player that can absolutely help the Chicago Bears. So the Bears have a lot at their disposal, and I think it's more than what some fans realize. The thing that I've had to also increase my knowledge on is that the depth that's there, right? Some of these players that come from smaller schools, or some of the players that aren't as necessarily heralded or looked at as blue chip guys, can still end up being solid starters for you. Yeah, you're not looking at those guys and then saying, hey, they're going to be stars, but let's not overlook the fact of having that depth, having solid quality players that all fit together. The sum of the parts can be better than the individual pieces would tell you they could be if you craft it right. And that's what it seems like Ryan Poles is bringing here. And we haven't had a whole hell of a lot of that in Chicago. We just haven't had a whole lot of that, of the pieces all fitting together. It seems like when we have had a team like that, it's gotten lucky, right? Or things like that. And Ryan Poles is really trying to do that. And then we'll end up seeing where it's going to be, man. This is going to be a fun season. It's going to be a fun offseason, I would think, for the Chicago Bears. And we're not too far away from the draft, man. As we get through the draft, a lot of things are going to be made a lot more clear for this team. And I know a lot of people are really excited about it too. Again, share your trepidation, share your doubt around this team, all of that. Let's have that conversation. Let's have that discourse. But ultimately, every Bears fan should want the same thing, and that's for this team to end up, regardless if it's a player that we wanted, a player that we didn't think the Bears should draft, if it ends up with this Bears team being a winning team, that's the most important thing, more than our personal desires for who the Bears should and should not draft. And again, that's not to get on some type of moral high horse or anything like that, because y'all know I ain't nobody to be having no moral high horse. I'm crazy as hell. I tell you that all the time. But the thing that I'm crazy about is my Chicago Bears, man. Lifelong Chicago Bears fan, 37 years on this planet, and all of those have been spent rooting for the Chicago Bears. And so let's hope. And all of those have also been spent not being able to celebrate winning a Super Bowl. That's where the ultimate goal is, and the ultimate thing that I think most Bears fans want. Everybody's going to rock with it if the Bears are winning, right? And even that's the people who are knocking Caleb Williams. If Caleb, you may not, and you don't have to hang out with Caleb, right? None of us, y'all, for me, some of you guys are judging Caleb Williams by things that it's like it's on your dating profile. Unless you're looking to date Caleb Williams, why are you so worried about this man's lips? I don't give a damn what he got on his lips. I give a damn about him throwing touchdowns on the football field. And if that leads us getting closer to a Lombardi trophy, I don't give a damn if he flies in a tutu and fondles the balls of Coleman Shelton. I don't give a damn. That's between him and Coleman. Let's go out there and win some football games. We spend enough time losing as a fan base. Let's not have a loser mentality over getting so caught up in what somebody does in their personal life if they can win us football games. Now, the doubt around what Caleb can do on the football field, hey, that's legit for every player coming into that. And it's going to be up to him to prove that that's not the case. But we'll end up seeing that, and that story is going to be told on the football field. It's not going to be told via even me sitting here talking on YouTube videos or us arguing in YouTube comments or on Twitter or whatever else it is. Hey, Bears fans, once we start winning, we're going to all come together. I truly do believe that. And let's hope that that is as soon as this season, where the Bulls can win at a higher rate than what we've seen for several years now for this franchise. But that's it for me for today. Make sure you guys are following the show at Shy Bears Central on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, and that's because of you guys, and we thank you guys so much. Matter of fact, do us a favor. If you're on the YouTube side, go and search Chicago Bears Central over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever you listen to us at, and leave a review and rating there for us. If you're on the podcast side, go over to YouTube, search Chicago Bears Central, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. It helps us grow. It helps our reach. It helps all of that. We appreciate you guys so much for that. But like I like to end everything on Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Man, Bears, can we get some wins in? Can we win a playoff game? I'll be really excited to talk about a playoff game win, but I love you guys. Go Bears, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.